Okay, hello, I'm Apocalypse the Geek Guru, and today I'm going to be reviewing The Gilded Age, Season 1, Episode 1, Never the New. Now, I personally feel as though this is geek stuff. I mean, it's a show about historical fiction. It's geeky to me. I like it, so screw it. And I'm a huge fan of Downton Abbey. It's made by the same dude. It's the same sort of style of show. Except Downton Abbey was about British aristocracy in the early 1900s. This is about American aristocracy in New York during the late 1800s. So, all right. For those of you who didn't know, that's what the show is about. American aristocracy in the late 1800s. It starts out in 1882 specifically. So, okay, all that being said, let's get right into this review. So the show starts out, as I said, in New York. Specifically, they're driving through Central Park, and it was actually really interesting to see Central Park in like an 1882 setting because it was literally just a dirt road with you know small trees, mostly fields, and no buildings or anything all around it. And I've never actually been to Central Park, but I've just seen it in you know movies and TV shows and the Spider-Man video games. So that's about as close as I've been to Central Park. But it was just weird to see it in such a different time. I've never seen it in like that time in like 1882. Like, you know, it was interesting to see. It's just interesting to see New York in that time. Like I love just period pieces about stuff like this. Like it's great to see in the horse and buggies and stuff like that. Like I love you know I've mentioned before on my channel I'm replaying Red Dead right now. I'm playing Red Dead Online, so it's around that time period. So I just love seeing all that stuff. But anyway, so it goes into them. All of these wagons are bringing up all of this. So what I'm looking for. They're bringing all these crates up to this big house that's just being built on this avenue. It's a huge house, all scaffolding outside, still getting finished. And then, they go through, we get to see the downstairs house a little bit, walking through. You see a little bit of the cook. Not a whole lot really happens, just them, walking around. You get the butler talks to the cook for a second. Has a little bit of a spat or whatever, not a spat, but she just tells him to do something. It's like, I know what I'm doing. And then we see, the Gilded Age, the big title screen come up. And then it cuts to a bank, and this woman in the bank, she's in all black, she's in mourning, someone she loves just died. And we find out that her father has just died and left her absolutely nothing. Like, the house they're in is being rented. All of his assets are just gone. Like he has no assets or anything. After the funeral charges and stuff, the banker or lawyer or whatever, whoever he is telling her that after all that, after all said and done, she's gonna have $30 in her bank account, which is not a lot of money, even back then. Like that was not a lot. Like especially if that's all you have and you have no means of income. $30 is not gonna cut it. And so he's telling, she's like, well, I didn't know this was gonna happen. It's like, well, I bet not. Uh, so he tells her to, what about your father's sisters? Your aunts. You mentioned them, and she says that, hey, they didn't like him. He didn't like them. I don't want to go to them. And he's just like, you can't. You have no other options. Weigh your options here. That's really it. You know. So she literally says, "You mean beggars can't be choosers?" And he's just like, "No, they can't." Like, no, they can't. Like, if you have $30 and some rich aunts, you're gonna want to send a letter to those aunts asking if you can come live with them because you have nowhere to live, no means of income, and only $30. Even though it's 1882, it's not gonna cut it. So she goes home, and it turns out that she actually has a letter from her aunts, one of her aunts, and inside he has two train tickets. So she's like, well, here it is. Here's my chance. She starts getting a little teared up. Like, oh man, they care. So anyway, she writes him a letter back, and then it cuts to her aunts, and her aunts are just great. One is Aunt Agnes. She is the mean one. Well, the strict one. She's not really mean. She's just like super strict. And she's saying how she's very upset with her sister Ada that she sent her a letter and that she sent her, especially that she sent her train tickets. She's like, well, who's gonna have to look after her? Me, with my money that I had to get, like, because apparently their father, I mean, not their father, but their brother, when he inherited everything, he didn't give them anything. He sold all their homes. He sold all their, like, places they lived for decades. All their family stuff, all their farms, everything. He sold it all and then spent all the money and didn't give them anything. And Aunt Agnes, the stricter, Aunt Agnes, she's the strict one. She's apparently had to marry some guy who was not a very good guy. Her sister Ada described him as not a man you would want to be left alone with. So there's that. So she's pissed. She was pissed at her brother, and they didn't get along, and that's why they haven't talked in years, probably decades. And it's funny because her sister is like, "We should have at least gone to the funeral." And then Agnes goes, "Well, why would we go there? There was no point in going just to make sure he was dead." Like, so that tells you how they felt about each other and how why the woman in mourning, Marion Brooks. She's the woman who's only has $30 left. Her name is Marion Brooks. I had to watch this like 3 times to try and get everybody's name, and I still don't think I have them all. So they're just sitting there, just talking it out, talking about how Marion's gonna come and live with them. And then Agnes sits at her little desk and she's like, oh, I have all these letters, all these letters, and I'm never gonna get through with it. Remember that, because it's gonna come up later. So, and then it goes to the people across the street that were building the house with all the scaffolding stuff. House is finished. Now they're coming in. It's this new family, the Russells. They're moving in. And it's funny, as Mrs. Russell is walking into her house, she looks back across the street, and Ada and Agnes, like, back up, they were spying on her through the window. And as soon as she looks back at them, she's like, oh. So she comes in, and I love their house. It's absolutely great. They have this big chandelier, red carpeting. It's great, like this white marble with like a gold inlay. Let's see if I can. All that. A little glimpse of it. It's that kind of style, and then they got 2 of those fireplaces. Like I love just like the houses, like everything about these shows. Same thing with Downton Abbey. I just love to like look at like just like wow. Just imagine living there, even wearing like a lot of their clothes and stuff. I'm gonna get into clothes because I hate a lot of Mrs. Russell's dresses. They're just like so stupid. I mean, what she's wearing right now isn't bad, but it's not great because she is okay. The Russells are trying to get into high society. They've been in banking for a while, but they didn't realize that they're new money, and the aunts and the widow and the not the widow. I always want to call her the widow, but her dad died, not her husband. But she's not married. But they are the old money. I almost called her a widow again. Marion Brooks and her aunts, Agnes Van Ryn, she's the mean one, and the other one's Ada. I think Brooks, Ada Brooks. I don't know her last name. Probably Brooks though. But anyway, so they are the old money. Their family has been in New York for since the Mayflower landed, like for hundreds of years, since the country was founded. And then the Russells, I guess they're coming in, they're in banking, they're just coming in, they're new money, as opposed to the Van Ryns, they're old money. So it's sort of like the Van Ryns and the Russells, you know. Mrs. Russell, she's trying to get into high society, so she's often trying like really hard, you know, with her dresses and stuff. I hear it. Like, I mean, it's not bad. The tassels and stuff are a little bit too much. All that little like tassely stuff. The hats, yeah, okay, I guess. But yeah, I'm gonna show you later. Like later on in the episode, she just gets some really gaudy dresses. There's this yellow and silver one that's just terrible. It's this gross yellow, mustard yellow with like a silver. So stupid. So anyway, she's coming in and expecting the house. She's expecting a house. She's inspecting the house and making sure everything's in order. All the carpets are in the right place. All the drapes are at a proper length. Seriously, they had a woman. She had a woman sitting there like mending the drapes, and she goes, "Make them an inch longer." So yeah, that's the kind of woman she is. She's super controlling. She has a daughter who she's like not doesn't like let leave the house. Uh, okay, and then so after she walks through, we're introduced to Mr. Russell, who's he's the guy. He's in banking. He's a banker, owns a big, huge bank, and he's sitting there like lighting up a cigar. It's funny. She's lighting up a cigar in his library, and she's like, "Why don't you do that in the smoking room? What is it? Why do we have a smoking room if you don't?" If you're gonna smoke in here, he's like, that's for entertaining friends. I'm not gonna be told where I can't smoke in my own library. But not like in a dickheady way, in like a jovial, like this is my house too. You can't, you know. So they have a I like that because they have a good little relationship going. The two of them, Mr. Russell, he's a nice guy and he's supporting his wife, understanding that she's trying to get into high society. I love this stuff. I don't know why. I don't know how. I never thought I would. But once I started watching Downton Abbey and like I just love the intrigue and relationship stuff. Normally, normally I would not. I never would have thought that I would have been interested in stuff like this because it's like I'm used to like Walking Dead and Star Wars and like Doctor Who, not high society types, aristocracy and stuff. But it's great. So they're just sitting there talking about how they're the new people. They're trying to come in and be in high society. And she's all trying to be proper, but it's like she didn't realize because they used to have a house further down the block or whatever, but that area of town was like the, lame part of town where like all of the not cool people lived or whatever. So that's why they're building this new house right across the street from the old money. And we can see they're downstairs and they have this they have this chef. Let me see if I can get a good still of him. He looks like a chef. Like he looks like Chef RD or whatever. Like look at that dude. That's their chef. He's like French. I don't know. He's talking to the valet. Oh, the valet. It's this bald dude right here. Don't know. He's not the guy that parks the cars. That'd be the chauffeur, which I don't even know if they have. I don't think they have cars. But the valet is basically like Mr. Russell, like the man of the house is like sort of like his personal attendant or something. Not like his assistant or whatever, but he just like helps him get undressed and like dressed before. Sounds really weird, but helps him put his clothes on and stuff because they wear like 4 layers of like dinner jackets and they got all these ties and buckles and clamps and crap all over the place. So they need help with that. That's why nowadays we just wear t-shirt and shorts because I don't want to have someone helping me get dressed. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Anyway, so that's what a valet is. That's his like personal dresser and undresser, I guess. Anyway, the chef's complaining about the house, being this and that. Chef stuff. Not enough burners, not enough sinks, not enough pots and pans. I don't know. oh, they have this, and then they start cutting to the other house after that. They have a little talk, and the valet goes and helps out with he's like, okay, I'm gonna go help the guy get dressed. That is kind of literally what he says. And they have this, as they're cutting to the other house, they have this really nice little scene where they show this guy going around and lighting all the little lamps. And that's what I love about like these shows like this, especially like Julian Fellows. Like just the attention to detail, like just little stuff like that is really, I like that stuff. Like all the little like hats and stuff that people wear and like the dresses that they wear are like often like a symbol of high society, where, that was the thing, especially in, what was it, like I said, Down Abbey. Oh man, look at that. One of the reasons why I love this show. Look at that, old New York, 1882. Look at that, the horses and buggies. Gotta love it. This is where we see. I keep cutting back and just showing stills. I'm not sure exactly how this whole reviewing shit works, what I'm capable of showing and how much, whatever. So when I get more informed, I'll maybe have better videos, and when I get better equipment to record on instead of just my phone, which is several years outdated. Okay, so we cut to New York, old New York, and that is when we see the Russell's Bank, which is this huge freaking bank. It's like what, freaking 10 stories tall, and that's in 1882. Like, that's a big building. So okay, we see Russell Consolidated Trust, and he's just working on some paperwork, and his like assistant or whatever comes in, not his valet, but like his actual like work assistant. And he's talking about how he wants to build, Mr. Russell, he's talking about how he wants to build a train track from, where does he say? Ohio to Toledo to somewhere else. It's not really important. But he just wants to build this big train track. But there's this other guy, well, actually, he just wants to have a track there. But there's this other guy who already has a track laid there. And he doesn't want to buy it. Well, actually, he was going to buy it, but the guy turned him down. He didn't like the price. So the guy turned him down. So he was like, you know what? Mr. Russell said, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to build another rail line right next to it and put that dude out of business. That cutthroat, old world, new world business style that we all know and love so well. And his assistant mentioned something really interesting where he goes, they need permission from the alderman, whatever the hell that is. I've heard the term before, I just don't know what the hell it is. Some society, not society thing, some sort of like position in government. It's like, I don't know, under a mayor, but above a citizen, I guess. That's all I can tell you. It's under a mayor, but above a citizen. So the guy was saying that they need permission from the alderman to build the track or whatever. And his assistant asks him like, hey, do you want me to get our detectives? What the fuck's a detective? To get our detectives and find some dirt on them? And Mr. Russell's like, nah, there's no need for that yet. But I like that little, like, his assistant, they have detectives, and his assistant is totally cool with like spying on people and getting information. So after that, it cuts to Marion Brooks. She's at the train station. The banker drove her there, and I don't know. I'm seeing a little bit of sparks between her and the banker dude, but we'll see, because he's now still in Philadelphia and she's in New York. So that could have just been a little, I don't know, will they, won't they, will it thing. So she's at the train station waiting for the train, and while she's there, these two guys get into a fight over, like, I don't know, nothing. I don't know. I'm rewatching it now. Okay, I just rewatched it. It was all a setup. These dudes, they saw her walk up and they saw her like all rich and stuff, And then they started fighting, and then a third guy came out of nowhere and was like, "Hey, break it up!" And they knocked him over, and he fell onto her. And as he was falling, he picks up her purse and runs off with it and steals her purse. And that's where her train tickets were. So now, not only does she only have $30, nowhere to live, and no source of income, but she had her purse stolen with her train tickets in it. And the guy bumps into her, knocks over, and she accidentally steps on and like rips a little bit of the dress off of this black woman who's also waiting for the train. And remember, this is 1882 in America, so racial tension was kind of tense. There was a lot of tense, like, tension. Why can I not say that word in the correct tense? Oh, I get it. So, anyway, she goes to the conductor or whatever, and she's like, "Hey, someone stole my purse. My train tickets were in there." And he's just like, shit happens, you know. Which, I mean, hey, what's he gonna do? How does she, But I mean, he could have let her onto the train, but it's 1882. What does he care? So, she, goes up to the black woman and she's like, "Hey, did you see my purse? I think someone stole my purse. My train tickets were in there." And she's like, "Oh, I don't want to hold you up." And black woman's like, "It doesn't matter. We have to board last anyway." So Marion goes back and just sits. She's like, "Oh, well." She goes back and sits down and just starts crying. And then the black woman, her name's Peggy Stott, the black woman's name. She, they bring her on and she sits in the back of the train with all of the black people, as you can see, and she's got literally got a handkerchief over her thing. I bet that place hasn't been cleaned. I don't know if they have a lot of smoking back there or whatever. So she's sitting with everybody, and she's telling her "Hey, when we get to New York, my aunts can pay you." And Peggy's just like, "Yeah, I bet they can if they're living on what is it, 5th Avenue, 64th Street, or something like that." She's just like, "Yeah, I bet they can." But so they're sitting on the train just talking about what they're gonna be doing. Yada yada yada. One sec. And then it cuts back to the Russells, and Larry Russell, her son, has shown up. Apparently he's been in Harvard or Yale or something. He was in college or whatever. But, oh man. But yeah, just look at that house. Freaking gorgeous. Okay, so he comes home. And yeah, that dress ain't that bad. Like the purple. It's not trying too hard. That's the problem. A lot of her other dresses, she's trying too hard, and she has no. I don't know who makes her dresses, but they need to be fired. I'll tell you that. Except that one. I mean, that bow in the back, whatever the hell that is in the back. I mean, that's a bit much. Like what? Looks like somebody just rolled up a blanket and pinned it to her ass. Like they literally just went. Alright. That'll do it. Just stuck it on there. Like, it looks stupid. So yeah, I'm gonna talk about almost every single one of her dresses every time it comes up. Cause she's wearing something different in every scene. Alright, yeah, let me look at that chandelier. Mm-hmm. Maybe someday I'll be able to rob a house like that or something. That's the only way I'll get inside there. So she's talking about how her son mentions that he met this one with this daughter of this high society lady, and his mom's like, "Oh, well, tell her, get close to her. Tell her I said hi, you know, because that is like her goal in the show is just to get into high society, get into the New York high society, and be, one of the really fancy women." She even mentions when they're having dinner, her husband asks her like, "Hey, why don't you call up some of your old friends?" And she's like, "I don't want my old friends. I want new friends." Like, so that's the kind of woman she is. She's just like, screw everything that happened before. Screw all the old people, because she didn't realize that the house she'd bought before was, like I said, in like the lower end of town or whatever, where people who thought they were fancy lived. So, and then it cuts to uh, Marion. I don't know. Maybe because she's in all black or something. I don't know why. I just want to call her widow. Uh, Marion and Peggy, they make it to what is it, Brooklyn. And they're gonna try and go catch the ferry or whatever, but Peggy's ferry breaks down and she can't go. So I'm just switching through. So Marion says, "Hey, come stay with us. Wait, because it's like raining and stuff." So she's like, "Hey, come, stay with us. We'll take you to my house and you'll hang out." Oh yeah, there it is again. Oh yeah, you can't really see. That dress isn't too bad. You can't really see it though. So she says, "Hey, come stay with us. It'll be all right. You'll be fine in the morning." And then it shows the Russells. They're sitting down to dinner. Their daughter, who's like, just like gorgeous. I don't know who she is, but she's adorable, adorable young woman. Uh, but Mrs. Russell just like almost ignores her. Like she's always like she treats her like she's like a child. Like she's always put like not so much putting her down, but just sort of like shoving her to the side or whatever. Like her daughter like tries to say something, and like, she just cuts her off, like completely ignores her. So like, yeah, she's kind of rude to her daughter. But yeah, so here we are. It's raining. Things aren't running, so she's like, "Hey, the ferry terminal, the ferry's not running. The dock broke or something." It's funny because like no one, no one really says anything at first. They just kind of like when they see her bring Peggy on, again, it's 1882 America, and she's like in high society America, and she's like, "Hey, here's this black woman. She's gonna come with us." People are just like, "Okay," like they literally that is literally like what they do, like except some of the maids, because Peggy goes down and like she goes to eat with the maids and stuff because it's late at night. They're like, "Hey, we'll fix you something." As soon as she steps out of the carriage, the butler, like, look at this dude's face. That is literally as soon as she stepped out of the carriage. He's just like, "Whoa, didn't see that coming." And she's like, Marion's like, "Hey, this is Miss Stott. She's gonna be staying with us." And the butler's just like, he looks back at the footman. Footman's just, I gotta get that. He does it again. I have a close up on him. Okay, come on. I at least be able to show this. Oh yeah, the staff are all sitting down, eating dinner or whatever, and they have the bells ring for the front door, and I just love that. I miss that from Downton Abbey. They have like what is it? They have like doorbells and like ring things and stuff in every room, and they all sort of link down to like the servants' hall. So where the servants are, like a little bell will ring, and it'll say like front door, or whatever. I'll just show it right here. Man, the fast forward on this really goes. Fast forward on this is fast, and the rewind. So I can just go like a second or two back. It's like nope, nope. Balls, just missed it. But yeah, so they're going, and everyone, she brings this woman up, and everyone's just kind of like, whoa. They're shocked because it's probably the only black person to ever be in that house. Oh, come on, I hit the button. I'm trying to show you the bells and stuff, because it's a pretty cool system. Like they have probably got some sort of like pulley thing that goes in behind the walls and everything. Come on, let me get it. There it is. You can see right there, it's like front entrance. It's like back door, and they have these bells that ring. And when they ring, it's literally like right there where like that woman's looking, and they're like, oh, well, time to get up. Time to go check the front door. So they go through, they check. That dude's face just gets me every time. She's like, hey, this is Miss Dot. She's going to be staying with us. She's going to be staying with us for a minute. And just look at this dude's face. That is priceless. They're just like, oh, okay. I guess she's going to be staying with us. That dude's face cracks me up. So she goes down. It cuts to Aunt Agnes. The first thing she says is, she says like, an unknown colored woman gave you train fare, whatever. She's like, that seems unlikely. And Marion's like, unlikely or not, it's true. So they bring in Miss Peggy Stott. I don't care for that last name. Stott. At first I was like, are they saying Thought? Is her last name Thought? And then I was like, nah, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that. So they bring her in to talk to Agnes, because Agnes is like, okay, fine, she can stay here, but I gotta meet her first. I'm not having anyone stay in this house that I don't know, which perfectly reasonable, And she's like, okay, you can stay here overnight, but give us some contact information, let us know where your parents or whatever are, and in case anything happens to you. Again, super reasonable. I would do the exact same thing. If anything happens, I want to be able to contact your people. Ooh. Your parents. So she goes, so Peggy goes, and she writes down her address and whatever, and she hands it to Agnes, and Agnes is like, well, where'd you learn to write like this? This is great. And she goes, Peggy, so many names. Peggy tells her, she studied at the school for colored youth or colored people, whatever, and in Pennsylvania or Philadelphia, same thing. So and so Agnes mentions like, oh wow, our father was a patron there, and she was like, did you ever participate in the pageants that they did there? She was like, yeah, every year. And Ada starts laughing. Ada starts feeling all giddy because she's like, oh, yeah, we used to go to those pageants every year. What do you sing? So Agnes is like, hey, why don't you go to bed before my sister asks you to sing a carol or something? So she starts laughing. And then things happen and people talk. Okay. But yeah. So Agnes is just like, okay, you're gonna have to. Agnes tells her like you're gonna have to go and um, what was it? She goes, "You're gonna have to go to my dressmaker tomorrow. Don't, no black." And Agnes is like, but I'm in mourning." And no, Marion's like, "But I'm in mourning." And Agnes goes, "It doesn't matter. No one cares." And Agnes says something about how like, oh, your dad, didn't leave you anything, you know, this or that. Like you probably realized that he wasn't that good of a person. And Marion's just like, don't speak ill of my father. And she's just like, and Agnes goes, "I can say what I want about anybody." She goes, "Not to me." He goes, "I'll say what I want under my house." It's just this little sort of back and forth how Agnes is like trying to lay down the law, and Marion's just like, I don't want to do that. She doesn't want to live under her constraints. So it's this real sort of it's interesting to see like sort of like a rebellious sort of teenager story. Well, I don't know how old she is. She's probably in her 20s, probably older than I am. But it's interesting to see that sort of rebellious story in like 1880s, high society and stuff. So Agnes is just sitting there telling her that like she she says, and I think I will. She's like, "We only accept the old in here." And at first I was like, does she mean old people? Like we only take old people in this house? And I was like, what? That's weird. And then she goes, "Never the new." And I was like, oh, she means old money, not the new money. Okay. So yeah. First I was like, oh, what? That doesn't make any sense. You mean no young people? So Peggy goes down to eat with the servants because they're eating. Like that's the servants just happened to be eating at that time, so they were like, "Yeah, you're gonna go stay downstairs because that's really the only rooms we have." Uh, and one of the maids is actually like really, she's really upset about that. She says that the butler's like, "Hey, you're gonna be staying, here like down here with us," and the maid is literally like, "She's gonna be staying on the same floor with us." So it's like, ooh, again, I'm gonna say attention. And the cook, God bless the cook. She's like, "Do you drink coffee?" And she's like, "Yeah, I drink coffee." So she tells her to go get the maid to go get her some coffee, and the maid literally like almost tosses the cup down. She's like, like there, slams it down. Like she's obviously not cool with it. And I liked how the old butler, he's actually like really cool with it. He's well, not really cool with it. I mean, they're all uneasy. Because like I said, they've never really been around black people probably. So they, again, it's 1882. There's a lot of tension. They don't know, you know, they don't know what the nice people don't want to do something wrong, and the mean people, well, either don't give a shit. Oh, like I said, but it's actually the old white lady. She doesn't really care. She's like, so she's like, are we supposed to use the same washroom and the same, uh, you know, scrub room and all that? And the butler's just like, well, she can't exactly use a bucket under the stairs. I love that. Like he's the one who's like being, progressive and stuff, and she's like, oh, the footman or the under butler, the guy who was like a second ago, he was like, I like her, she seems nice. And the old lady, she was like, and that's all you know? And he was like, yeah, that's all I need to know until she says it, until she gives me a reason otherwise, which I like. They're not they're not portraying everybody as like super racist and prejudiced. It's like, no, the old white lady, she's like, she's gonna come in here and stir things up. And the butler, he's like, well, maybe we could use some stirring up. I like that. He's like the opposite of Carson from Downton Abbey, which is great. I mean, I love Carson. He was awesome. But it's cool to see that what am I looking for? That I don't know, American spirit, that like new things, like accepting new things kind of shit. But it's funny. The white like right after that, the white lady she walks into a room. They bump into each other. Her and Peggy. I don't know the. I keep calling her the white lady. I don't know her name. Like I said, I'm sorry to get everybody's name in here. There's two big houses and all these other people. So yeah, they sort of like almost bump into each other. And Peggy, she's like, "Oh, excuse me," and the woman just stares her down until Peggy has to like get out of the way. Like she literally like steps back and is like, "Excuse me." She's like, "Oh, excuse me." Then like realizing like, "Oh, she doesn't like me." So the old white lady, she goes into her room, and you hear her. She doesn't go in her room. She slams the door, and you hear it lock behind her. And then Peggy walks into her. She walks into her room. She closes her door, and then she locks her door too, which says like a lot. Especially about those times and stuff, where it was like Peggy is just as probably just as uneasy, if not more so, around them. Like she's probably way more worried about them than they are of her. Well, at least she has way more of a reason to, probably at least at that time. Uh, so then it cuts to the morning. Peggy is talking to Aunt Agnes. She's like, "Hey, you know." Agnes is like, "Here's the money," and Peggy's like, "Hey, I'll thank you." And then Agnes starts complaining about all of her letters and stuff. And then Peggy offers to, she'll write out some letters. She'll, take her dictation, which for those of you who don't know and think it's something weird, to dictate a letter is basically when people are like, you ever see someone like talking and then they'll have someone else writing it down. That's dictating a letter. You're dictating a letter to them. So she's like, "Yeah, sure." Agnes is like, "Yeah, sure. I'll dictate some letters to you." You know. She's like, "But they'll be boring. And then it cuts to the Russells, and Mrs. Russell is all happy because she just got an invitation to go and what is it? She got an invitation to be a part of this charity. So she's like, "Ooh, this is my foot in the door. I'm gonna get into high society," and stuff like that. And then so her and her husband talk about that for a second, and she's like, "Oh, they're gonna meet at this hotel." And her husband's like, "Really? Why not one of their houses? Sounds like they don't, sounds like it's not going to go too well." She's like, "Don't spoil this for me." And then it cuts back to the Van Ryans. And, what is it? Oh, Agnes is saying, she's like, "Okay, it's if you want to stay here, I could use a secretary." Like, she's telling Peggy that, she'll hire her on to be a secretary. And then Peggy's like, "Yeah, sure, but working here and living over in Brooklyn, that'd be a bit hard." So Agnes is like, "Okay, well, you can stay here and live here." And again, I like how, I'm sure, I guarantee we'll see some like bold racism, but I like just some blatant, just, you know, real bad stuff. But I like how even, this high society old lady, like she's like, "Yeah, sure, I'll hire you." She not only doesn't have a problem with her, she's perfectly fine with hiring her on and letting her stay. I like that. How they're showing that not everybody is just like a horrible racist, back then in America. And so then Agnes hands Marion like the same letter, like they got like the same letter for the same charity as the Russells, and she's saying, "Hey, Marion, why don't you go and do this? You want to do stuff, do this, you know." So she go. Oh yeah. So she starts charity, and then it cuts in back to the Russells. Cuts back and forth between them a lot, and Lady Russell's. Is that what you say? Miss Russell, whatever. I think it's Miss Russell. Her lady's maid, which is basically the female version of a valet. A lady's maid helps a lady with her clothes. Taking them off, getting them on. Choosing stuff there, but they're also like good at like hairdressing and stuff like that. They're also like really fashion conscious. Like she'll ask her like, "Hey, what do you think of the brooch? What do you think of this?" They'll recommend jewelry and stuff like that. So her lady's maid is walking by, and she's like eyeing Mr. Russell, like, you know, like eyeing him up. Mr. Russell's just like, hey, are you looking for my wife? And she's like, no, not particularly. You know, and then it's just like, Mr. Russell's like, oh, okay, whatever. And he walks off, not probably oblivious, you know. And then, but his valet is like right behind her, and he's just like, he walks up, he's just like, hey, you know, don't, he says something like, don't reach too far, you know, be careful. I'm telling you, this is a friend, you know. So he's onto her. He knows that something's up. She's trying something. And then it cuts to, I think it's Newport, Rhode Island. Yeah, I think I mentioned that. And it's all these high society types. It's this big lawn party, you know, with all people like this, you know, dressed all fancy and stuff. And they're playing. I felt super freaking white when I saw this because they're playing badminton and croquet. And I used to live in Seattle, and me and my family, we used to play badminton and croquet like all the time. Like anytime we had like family gatherings, it'd be like, hey, get the croquet set, or get the badminton set. You know, I love croquet. It's a great game if you got the balls for it. But anyway, so they're at this big lawn party, and it's Larry Russell. He's there, and this woman's introducing him to this other woman. You know, and then. Oscar Van Ryn, Agnes's son, he walks up, and this dude is, I'm about to show you, he looks like Freddie Mercury wearing a pair of like Elton John sunglasses or something. Which is nothing wrong. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, he's cool at all. But like, oh, come on, where's this dude? Wait, there he is. Like, look at him. I love those shades. Oh, I just noticed he's got looks like a little wolf pendant or something, or what the hell is that? I think it is a wolf. That's badass. I just noticed that. I love wolves. Except in video games. Bastards. But so he's sitting there, he's just like, oh, you know, I'm here. Oh, and then he's talking. Larry says like, "Hey, I'm like, oh, you live across. My family just moved across the street from you." And he's like, "Oh, that's you. My mom mentioned." Oscar Van Ryn is like, "Oh, yeah, my mom mentioned you before, but not as an acquaintance." And then they just sort of sip their drinks, get all quiet, and then it cuts to Peggy is meeting with her mom, telling her, "Oh yeah," because Agnes said that. Sorry, I forgot to say that. Agnes said that she'd hire her on, but only if she went and, you know, told her family where she was going to be and what she was going to do. So it cuts to then after the garden party or lawn party, whatever. It cuts to Peggy meeting with her mom in this restaurant, which is obviously only for black people because it's like, as you can see, and it's really interesting because they're like they're just like long, and they actually showed like they're downstairs, so they might even be like underneath either like their own restaurant, like another restaurant for like white people, or just literally like in a basement somewhere. I don't know, but again, I just love that attention to detail, just little stuff like that. And her mom's just like, why did we have to come here? Apparently it's a bad place. Doesn't look that great. But okay. So Peggy's saying how she didn't want to come. She doesn't want to come home. Apparently her dad did something. They haven't been very clear on that. They haven't been clear on that yet. I'm sure it'll come up. But apparently she wanted to go do something. Like, she wants to be a writer, you know, which is great. Love that. A little bit of ambition, you know. I mean, she's dictating letters. That's a start. You know, she's writing. But get to practice her penmanship. She has better handwriting than I do. They show like a letter of her, or whatever, like a that she wrote or whatever, and it's like she has this great calligraphy. I can't write to save my life. But oh yeah, she's you know, apparently her dad did something. Her dad did something, but her mom is like, you know, defending her dad, like, oh, you know, he's not that bad. He loves you. This and that. Same old story. So again, I don't know what her dad did, but I don't know how bad it was. What the hell? But her mom, says that he still loves you. This and that. So I'm sure that'll come together later on. Oh God, here we go. Here's the mustard dress. The mustard dress with the hat. It's a stupid hat. But oddly enough, her daughter looks lovely. Look at that. The hat, jeez. Terrible. Just terrible. But again, I'll show you. Yeah, no. What are those? What are those? Like horns? It's like their feathers, like sculpted into horns or something. Looks like someone ripped off a chicken breast, taped two of them to her hat. And that color, you can't even really get a good look at the color because it's all like dimmed out because I'm in pause or whatever. But still, it's still a bad color. Just not a great combination and not a great dress. I don't like this, like a sash or whatever. What is that? Terrible. The daughter, on the other hand, looks lovely. Her dress is very nice. I wouldn't go with the blue. I would have gone with a white maybe for the little hat, sash, whatever you call the blue thing. I'd have gone with white because it would go in better with her stuff. Or some blue accents on her dress instead of just stark white with that like blue just thrown in. I don't know. So again, I'm gonna talk about her dresses because I just hate them. I don't know what. As I said, she's just like trying too hard. So anyway, she's at the. They get to the. I'm ragging on her dress and forgetting about the story, but so they get to the charity thing, and it's funny because the women who are like running the charity, it's like they really don't like her, and it's like painfully obvious. But they're really at the same time they're really trying to make her feel like they like her. Like, because apparently, they're running a charity, and she's like super rich. So the only reason they even invited her was just to get her money, and she's starting to see that. I mean, at first like she didn't really care, but it's like that's all they care about. And then they mention this other woman called Agnes. No, not Agnes. It was Augustus Chamberlain, who is apparently like a pariah or something. Oh, come on. I hate when I hit the button and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. I'm trying to. This is apparently Augustus Chamberlain, and she's like a pariah, I guess, because no one wants to talk to her. And she even mentioned, Miss Russell even asks, like, hey, she seems to know as little people as I do. And the women running the charity are like, oh no, she knows everybody, but nobody wants to know her. And I wonder why. I mean, look at that stupid hat. It's worse than Miss Russell's. But her dress is nicer. I like the blue with the feathers. So while Mrs. Russell is getting snugged by the charity people, Aunt Ada, the nice one, walks up with Marion. They get there at the same time, and it's funny because Mrs. Russell is almost instantly ignored by the charity people as soon as they walk up. They're like, oh, hey, oh my God, Ada, is your sister going to be here? Who is this? Oh, Marion, love to meet you. Oh, so nice. And meanwhile, Mrs. Russell's just sitting there like fuming, like, who are these people? Why am I being ignored? Stop ignoring me. And, they're just sitting there laughing and all this stuff. And then the charity people introduce Ada to Mrs. Russell, kind of. They tell Mrs. Russell, they're like, oh, this is Ada. God, they probably say her last name, but I just forget. Oh, this is Ada Brooks, and this is Ada and Marion. They're from And even Ada is like, why did you like look at giving the charity people a look? Like, why did you invite them? They're new money. We don't like, we don't want new money. I love that. Like, her, Mr. Russell even makes a point about how like he's richer than all of these people, and she like their fam like the Russells are richer than the Van Ryns. They're way richer, but it's like because they haven't been there long since like the 1600s. Nobody likes them. It's like what? So even Ada is like, whoa, you can't. Why are they here? Agnes is not gonna be happy about that. And she's like, there's a price to pay for inviting new money. You know. And even Marion is wondering about Agnes Chamberlain. Agnes, I keep wanting to say Agnes. Agatha Chamberlain. She's like, who's that woman over there with the stupid hat? She doesn't say that, but she should have. And it's funny because as soon as I keep wanting to say Agnes. As soon as Augustus Chamberlain, like Miss Chamberlain, I'm just going to say Miss Chamberlain, looks over at them, they're just like, you know, so I don't know who, that is like the only time they show her is during like that little charity thing. I don't know who she is or what she's done, but again, I'm sure she's going to come up again. Okay. And then it goes to Mr. Russell's office, and he's talking to the guy who's going to try and put out a business. Excuse me. And the guy's just all pissed off. He's like, "Hey, you know, you want to waste a fortune and build a line right next to mine? Why don't you just buy mine?" And Mr. Russell's like, "Well, I was going to, but you turned down my offer." And he's like, "Well, because I thought you were going to come back with another one. You know, we were negotiating." And he's just like, and Mr. Russell's just not having it. He's just like, "Nope." He's literally sitting there like this, just like, "Nope." And so the guy's just telling him, he's like, "So you're gonna end up wasting all this money." And the guy's like, "Actually, I don't think so, because once people figure out that my second offer is my final offer, they're gonna start they're gonna start realizing they're gonna start paying up." And the guy's just like, the guy he's talking to is just like, "You bastard." And he has a great line where he's like, Mr. Russell has a great line where he's like, "I may be a bastard, Mr. Whatever, but you are a fool. And of the two, I know which one I would rather be." Or something like that. Just like that. So I love that, he's this cutthroat businessman. I like that, Same with his little assistant who's like, well, I say his little assistant. His assistant's older than he is. Mr. Clay. But so he's like, "Okay, yeah, I'm gonna put you out of business, and ruin you and when I build my railroad." So the guy storms out. And then it switches back to the lawn party over in Newport, but honestly, nothing really happens. It was kind of a pointless scene, to be perfectly honest. Like, at least the flashback to it. Like, I don't think there was really anything gained there. Wondering how much time I have. And then Marion goes to visit Peggy in her room, and ask how things are. And Peggy's like, "It's pretty good, except for a few people, except for one or two exceptions. Everyone's pretty nice." Obviously speaking about the old white lady and the young white lady. Now, that one's not too bad. I just don't care for the frills around the collar. It's like these big, like, feathery things. The color scheme's all right. It's just sort of yellowish gold with a light blue. It's not bad. Daughter's looks a lot lovelier, though. Yeah, every time I'm gonna have to talk about her dresses because there's something to say about them. I'm like, watch me get a close up of this thing. Like, look at that. Like, what the hell is all that crap? You take that away and it's not a bad dress, but with all that, it's just stupid. Like I said, she's always trying too hard. Just way too hard. So So they sit down and they're talking about something or other. Oh yeah, she's saying how she's gonna invite people over now. She's gonna have a little soiree, a little party, and then they talk about they go down. Then it cuts down to the servants, and I love how all the servants are just sitting there gossiping, like they're sitting there gossiping, talking about how is they're gonna invite somebody over. They're gonna, the servants in the other house are talking about how the party in the Russells that the Russells are gonna throw, and they're all talking about how like one of the footmen mentions how it's like, oh well, Miss Van Ryn, she's gonna have to, you know, uh, it's like bend the knee. She's gonna have to get with the times sooner or later. And their butler, Bannister, he's like, why is that? He's like, oh really? And footman, I forget the footman's name. He's like, I forget, it's like Jimmy or Thomas or no, those were no, something American, but he's like, well, they're the new money. They're gonna run this country sooner or later. So she's just gonna have to get with it. And the butler's just like, well, not yet. And then it cuts to the other house, and all their servants are gossiping and stuff. And they're talking about how they're gonna have this big party. They're planning this big party, but the what is it? The wife doesn't know. I mean, yeah, Miss Russell, she doesn't know about these things. She doesn't know how these things are supposed to go because she's new money. She doesn't know how the high society does it. And then Mr. Watson, the valet, that's his valet. That's Mr. Russell's valet's name, Mr. Watson. He starts saying how like, oh, he's got nothing to. They're asking him questions about like, oh yeah, because the lady's maid is saying how no one's gonna want to come to the party, and if they do, it's only gonna be out of curiosity. And the valet is like, oh, if you're successful, people are gonna want to be interested in you and stuff like that. And he's like, it's only when you become unsuccessful that people turn their backs on you and stab you in the back. And then the butler, Church, he's like, oh, it sounds like you got something. He was like, oh, you sound rather bitter, Mr. Watson. And Watson he says something like, oh, I don't have anything to hide. And as soon as he said that, I was like, oh, this guy's got something to hide. Like, you don't say I got nothing to hide unless you got something to hide. Like, even the chef is like, when he goes, I have nothing to hide. And even the chef is like, well, if that is true, you must be a very unusual person. Again, I don't know if he's French or Italian, what. But, okay. And then it cuts to Marion is standing on the street with the dog, because they have a dog named Pumpkin, I think. And she doesn't have a good grip on the leash, And the dog runs out into the middle of the street. And then, oh man, but who would it be but Larry Van Ryn? Or no. Larry Russell. She's the Van Ryn one. Actually, she's Brooks, but not important. But Larry, I want to call him Van Ryn again. Larry Russell, he sees the dog, and it's about to be run over by a carriage, and he runs out and saves the dog in the most cliched love story meetup ever. Like, I was straight up like, come on, man. Like, out of all of the like really, the dog runs out in the middle of the street, and then he runs out to save it. That's the best you could come up with for their meeting. Come on, man. That was in Hitch. That was a freaking plot in Hitch. Because it was like, you would have to set that up. Like, do you have any idea how difficult it would be for that? Like, why would she not hold on to the freaking leash? Not only that, why'd the dog stop in the middle of... Okay, that is like my one problem with that scene. This is my one problem with the show. I mean, look at that. It's stupid. It's like this pink, like salmon pink with like this silver. She loves to have terrible color combinations, and it's usually combined with silver. That mustard with the silver, the mustard yellow with the silver, and now this like crappy pink with the silver. Hey, like I said, she's just trying too hard. Again, her dressmaker needs to be fired, and it has like these like shoulders, like look at that. I mean, the shoulders aren't bad, but like for like with the material and like just the design and like what is that called, embroidery? It's just too much. It's just so stupid. I wouldn't wear it. I'll tell you that. Not even to the prince's ball. Not that I was invited. Okay, so they're just talking about. She's asking him like, "Hey, you were at that big party. Did you meet anybody? Oh, I heard you met this one lady." And she's just telling him like, "Hey, get your foot in that door. Be not, talk to all the daughters, basically." So they're getting everything set up, and then it cuts again to Van Ryn's, and they're in this carriage, and now I don't know what or why the hell they got. I saw someone do this earlier, but like, there's a dude standing on the back of the carriage. Like, I don't know why. I don't know what that's for. Like, is he like there to open the little doors or whatever? Like, I don't get what he's doing. I don't know. I'm gonna have to like look that up. That's escaped my high societal knowledge. Okay, but they're talking about the charity thing and how she's doing at the charity and everything. And Ada mentions that, or no, Marion asks like, so who's Augustus Chamberlain? And Agnes is just a lot of A's in this name. Ada, Agnes, Augustus, Glut. But Agnes is just like, what? Where did you hear that name? Who? And Marion's just like, well, she was at the charity thing. And Agnes looks over at Ada and she's just like, well, who else was there? Pickpockets? Freshly released criminals? And she's just like, apparently that woman's a pariah. Like, everybody hates her. And so after they talk about that, Marion says, oh, yeah, I got this invitation to the Russell's party. And she's like, so are we going to go? And Agnes is just like, don't be ridiculous. Like, we're not going to go to that party. Again, it's just like, they're the old money and they don't accept the new money. It's just funny to me. And then it cuts to, oh my god. She's got like a jacket to go over that god awful dress, which honestly it makes it a little bit better. But the hat, okay, yeah, the hat's not too bad. With the whole thing, with the little jacket thing, it's not terrible. At least at that angle and that light. She's going around and she's going around and delivering her invitations. And this is some Downton Abbey that was really funny. They even put their correspondence, like their letters and shit, their telegraphs, anything they get, like they'll deliver it to them on a silver platter. Like, even their letters and telegrams and stuff, like they don't just hand it to them. No, they put it on a silver platter, and bring it down to them. So anyway, this butler like, oh, the lady's not home. She's not here. And Miss Russell is like, oh, my husband hung out with her at in Newport. The lawn party was at like this woman's house. But the butler's just like, oh, she's not home, she's not here. And then as she's leaving, it cuts to there's the woman watching her leave. Like, she didn't like nobody likes her because she's new money. And then it cuts back to that big ass bank. Mr. Russell's in a meeting with the board. Blah blah blah, just saying how he's gonna get the new thing. And then he asks in the architect who built their house. He's like, hey, we're having this party. I want you to come. People might be interested in the house. I want you there to answer questions. I hope it works out. Yada, yada, yada. Blah, blah, blah. Peggy's writing some more letters. Oscar comes home and he see he sees Peggy and he's like, "Oh, hello." I'm like staring at her as she leaves, like. But then Agnes is like, look at her work. She does good work. So I shrugging, like whatever. So Oscar, oh yeah, that's the Oscar Van Ryn. He's the dude who looks like Freddie Mercury with what's it called? Elton John's glasses. That dude. He's Agnes's son. I believe I mentioned that. And it's funny. Oh yeah, when he was talking about he met Larry Russell at the party, and he was telling him that I forgot to say that because I was so caught up in how funny the dude looked. But he was telling him that his cousin Marion, she was just come to stay, and he was like, "Oh," he said something like, "A woman with a face of a cabbage and body to boot," or some shit like that. Like just basically saying like, "Oh, she's ugly, and I don't want to have anything to do with her." And then when Larry meets her after he saves the dog heroically, he's just like, "Oh, you're not what your cousin described you as," like just completely infatuated. And then he sees then not Larry, but Oscar. He meets her for the first time and sees her come down the stairs like this. He literally says, "He's like, hold on." He go. He literally walks up to her and is like, "Should we kiss? We are cousins after all." And she goes, "How about just a handshake?" Like, oh man, it's like, oh man, 1882. It's like we're cousins. Oh yeah, and she was saying how Agnes was telling her that Oscar's bringing his friend Adam, Mr. Adams, who is like ancestor or something of John Quincy Adams, one of our presidents, one of our I don't know, least less notable presidents. I don't think he did anything that I can think of off the top of my head. He wasn't one of the big ones, I guess. Which is funny. They do actually mention the Roosevelts. I think actually, I think they're in the end. But it's funny. She was telling Agnes was telling Marion to like buddy up to him. Be kind to him. Trying to get in there, and so she meets him and she's like, hey, maybe you'd like to show me around. And Mr. Adams is just like, oh, I'm sure Aunt Agnes has a nice list of museums you can check out. Like just shoots her down instantly. Just shot down. Okay, and then it cuts to the chef, and he's, worried about this big soiree, this big party they're going to have because he was told to cook for like maybe 200 people or more. He has no idea. And then here's the lady's maid saying how Miss Russell doesn't know how these things work, this and that. Because she used to work, the lady's maid, she used to work for another lady who was part of like the old money. And that's why Miss Russell hired her. Because like she knows how things are supposed to go, this and that. And so she's saying how, oh, she doesn't know this, she doesn't know that. And then, what was it? The butler is just like, well, he basically tells her like, well, shut up. We don't, so I go help her dress. So then it cuts to the bedroom. Mr. Russell's sitting there saying how, oh, I hope everything works out. This will be great. Now, oh, damn. Okay, cut back to it. Come on. Now, this, I was like, oh, that's not bad, and I was like, it looks a lot like a robe, though. Turns out it is a robe, and her actual dress is god awful. I was literally just like, oh, it's not that bad. Looks kind of like a robe though, especially with like the thing right there. And then later, it's like she's in a different outfit, but it's like that was just like, her lady's maid was just helping her put on the jewelry and stuff. So they're sitting there talking. I like the husband; he's cool. He's cutthroat, like a nice, loving husband, doting father. I don't know about doting, but he. Oh yeah, and then cuts back again to Marion, she's sitting there watching. They literally roll out. I gotta get that. They literally, what is it? The Russells are literally rolling out the red carpet. Like, there it is, rolling it out. Rolling out that red carpet. And then, they're sitting there watching it. Oh, that's a great face. They're sitting there watching them, roll out the red carpet and get ready for the big party. And, she's like, hey, why can't I go to this thing? And she asks Ada, like, why does Aunt Agnes, dislike my father? Why do they have such a bad thing? Why were they so estranged and this and that? And that's when Ada tells her, like, hey, it's because he sold all of our houses. He sold all the farms, and and this and that, and that he'd left them with like nothing. And Agnes had been, she wasn't married yet, but this dude had proposed, so she felt like she had to accept it because they didn't have anything. Otherwise, they'd have been like homeless on the street. So. Oh yeah, and she's Marion asks like, and Mr. Van Ryan wasn't a good man, and that's when Ada says he wasn't a man that you would want to be alone with. So glossing over, talking for a while, yada. Yeah. Oh yeah, just wanted to. This is like here's the valet. I've heard it pronounced valet and valet, so but I think it's valet. I don't know, whatever. But so yeah, that's all it does. Just help him put stuff on. Have a little chat. Oh God. There it is. And now look at that freaking train. It's like all the way back here. The flowers are just way too much. Like those big puffy flowers. First off, they don't even match. They're not even the right color. Like the dress is like white and black. Those are like a tan, like a peachish kind of like almost pink kind of thing. Just doesn't look good. Just doesn't look good. And again, that train is it's a train wreck. That's what it is. It's got like those little more flowers just posted on it, like freaking crappy polka dots. Like they just pinned flowers onto her thing. And the embroidery, I don't care for it. And that, like, what is it? What it was called? Bustle? Like the bustle? No. Just terrible. So he's talking to the butler. Is that one church? Yeah, that one's church. The Russell's butler is church. The Van Ryan's butler is Bannister. So she's just telling him, make sure everything's okay. And then it cuts again back to Marion, and Peggy walks in, and she's like, Peggy's asking like, hey, do you want to go to the party? And she's like, yeah, but I can't. Aunt Agnes won't let me. And Peggy's like, well, I can watch downstairs and help you sneak out and help you sneak you back in. And so Marion's just like, oh, my co-conspirator. So she's like, all right. So Marion is gonna sneak down to the party, and then we cuts back again to the Russells. They're finishing up their dinner, about to get ready for the party, and her daughter, what's her daughter's name? Gladys. I think her daughter's name is Gladys. She's like, what am I gonna do, mother? And she's like, well, you're gonna go to bed. That's what I'm saying. Where she's always like shutting her daughter down, and then the dad's just like, oh, come on now, she's not a child, and even the brother's like, yeah, let her stay. Why isn't she? No one's gonna mind that she's not out yet. Oh yeah, it's like in high society, women when they reach certain age, when they reach the proper age or whatever, they have like a coming out party. I think it's called, which has a whole different meaning nowadays. But it would be, they would have this big party, and they would invite everybody, and now it's like, okay, now they're officially ready to start dating and looking for a husband. So her daughter was supposed to have come out, but hasn't yet, because her mom's like overprotective or whatever. And her mom, she said that she also wanted to have her ball be in like this house. So then it cuts back again to the Van Ryns. And Marion's like, oh, I'm thinking I got a little bit of a headache. I'm going to go up to bed or whatever. And I think Ada's like onto her. I think she knows. She's like, oh, you going to have a late night or whatever? I think Ada knows what's up. But yeah, so Peggy helps her sneak out. They go. There's this funny little shot of them walking behind Bannister as he's checking stuff. I don't know what he would be writing. So she goes to the party, and there is like nobody there. Like literally, there's about 7 or 8 people there. Like, and that's not including the family. That's like 8 guests or whatever. And I'm being generous. There's probably maybe like 6. And so Miss Russell is happy that she showed up. She's like, "Oh, Marion, I guess your aunts aren't gonna, but I guess your aunts couldn't be here, right?" Because Miss Russell, she's getting tired of that whole people snubbing her. She's getting tired, so she's like, "Oh, but your aunts couldn't make it." She's like, "No, they wouldn't come out." And then the woman from the charity shows up, but she just shows up alone, like not with her other friends. There were 2 women who ran the charity, and just one of them shows up. And what is it? Marion and Larry, they keep talking. They just sit there, chatting it up. Miss Russell talks to the woman from the charity, and the woman from the charity is just like, "Oh, yeah, my husband, he couldn't make it, and neither could the Mrs. other charity lady or her husband." And she was like, "It's such a shame, isn't it?" And Miss Russell is like, "Yeah, it is a shame, especially when you think about the large check that you want me to write for you two." And the charity lady, she's just like, "Oh, well, I thought that if I, popped in for a few minutes, then maybe." And Miss Russell's like, "I know what you thought." And she's like, "Oh, and don't worry, you don't have to stay. Go. In fact, go." And she basically kicks her out of her house. She's like, "Leave now." So the charity lady, she starts leaving. She walks to the door, waiting for the footman to get her coat. The footmen are like, you have the butler who sort of like runs the thing, and then you have like the under butler maybe, and then you have the footmen, and they're all the dudes. The footmen are basically like the guys who hold the platters, and they help people with their coat. They do all the other stuff. And then Marion, she goes up to Miss Russell, and she's like, "Hey, I gotta leave. Oh shit, I gotta leave. My aunt's okay. My aunt's be expecting me." And Miss Russell's like, "Oh, I'm sure you have to leave too." She was a bit, kind of bitter. And her husband, it was either her husband or the architect, they're all standing together. Her husband is like, I think it's her husband. He says, don't, it's like, don't think ill of her. Her aunts would have forbidden her to come, but she still, decided to defy them. She's like, don't. So he's just saying, like, don't be mad at Marion. She came. She tried to try to be here and show support. So, and Marion talks with Gladys and Larry for a second, and she's like, "Hey," and Larry's like, "Hey, we should all remain friends, the 3 of us, despite the differences, despite the old money and the new money." So Peggy sneaks her back. She leaves the party. Peggy sneaks her back in, and then she comes back down. For some reason, I don't know why she decided to come like back down and talk with Agnes and Ada again. She's like, Ada's like, "Oh, Ada was just like, "Oh, how are you feeling better? Feeling all right?" Like I said, I think Ada's onto her. I think she knows what's up. But oh yeah, Marion's just like, "Oh, my headache's. I'm feeling much better. My headache's really quite gone." It's like, sure. But then Agnes tells her like, "Hey, we decided that we're gonna give you an allowance." And Marion's just like, "Oh wow, you've already given me so much. I can't accept." But and she obviously accepts that she has no choice. But well, that's not the point. So, oh, but she also said, when after Agnes leaves, Marion's sitting there with Ada, with Aunt Ada, and she's like, I don't know if I can accept, I mean, it's not just that y'all have given me so much, it's also that she doesn't want to live under, Agnes's rule, she doesn't want to live under all her strict rules. And Ada tells her, like, hey, she tells her something like, always be true to yourself, always stick to your own values. Something like that, that's all any of us can really do. And Marion's just like, wow, that's very wise, Aunt Ada. And Ada's just like, well, don't sound too surprised now. Oh, man. I had, like, all this food. Like, just all this freaking massive, like, just food that nobody, just look at it, all that shit that nobody ate. And she's just walking through, and what do you want me to do with it, ma'am? And she's like, take it to the charity hall, box it up, and call the charity people in the morning. And her husband's just like, I don't know what the poor of New York will make of lobster salad. And then she just kind of like storms off. And it's just like, oh, dude, come on. Poor timing. Like, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Like all these dudes and stuff, they're all like footmen. They just carry stuff around. And those things that they wear, I think they're called liveries. Liveries. That's what they call their little uniform that they wear. Fish. Like, oh, it's just so much food. And the chef's just like, oh man, I'm not used to cooking for poor people. And and then the lady's maid, she's steady talking shit. Lady's maid is always just like, oh. She walks in and she's like, oh, it was a failure. The whole night was what did she say? It was a failure. I forget what word she says. Some S word. It was I don't know. But she goes, failure begets failure, failure spreads. And then the valet walks up to her and he's like, what about Mr. Russell? Is he a failure? And she, because he saw her he saw her checking him out, checking out Mr. Russell. So he's like, oh, what about Mr. Russell? Is he a failure? And she's just like, and walks on, like no response. Like I'm gonna keep my mouth shut and walk away. And then it cuts back again. Cuts back again to there's always just so much going on, but it's really just like these two houses, like just across the street from each other. I love it. But so it cuts to Marion and Peggy. They're, Peggy's asking her like, how things go, checking up, and then they sort of share their aspirations. Marion says that she wants to work, she wants a job, she wants to do stuff, and she can't just sit there idle. She just got to always, be moving. And Peggy's like, I don't think your aunts are gonna really go for that. So Marion's like, well, fine. I'm just gonna work in the charity and stuff, then do the best that I can, see what comes up. And Peggy tells her, hey, I want to be a writer. I want to, do this and that. And Marion's just like, oh, you can do it. Women are doing all sorts of things. And Peggy's just like, yeah, white women, saying, which is true back then. As I said, it's good honor being very ambitious, wanting to do something that was really difficult for black people to do at that time. A lot of things were. But okay, then it cuts back. After that, it cuts back to Oscar Van Ryn. And he walks into this building. I can't tell if it's his house or if he's at some hotel or someone else's house. I can't really tell where he is. But he walks into this room and, takes his jacket off. And some dude is like, it's Mr. Adams. And he's like, hey, so how was the night or whatever? And Oscar's just like, oh, I didn't get to go to this party or whatever, this or that. And it turns out that Mr. Adams and Oscar are like lovers or whatever. But I think that I think that Oscar is like bi. Because he, like I said, he wanted to kiss Marion, his freaking cousin. But, you know, it could have been like, I don't know what the hell the word is for it. Like, could have been him, you know, trying to seem straight, you know, get their scent off the trail or whatever the word is for it. Uh, but at the same time, why would he seem so? He seemed genuinely like, whoa, hello, you're gorgeous, you know, this, that. So he could be bi. So that'd be interesting to see how he navigates those waters. And then it cuts to, I believe they're the Roosevelts, honestly. I mean, they say Roosevelt. I don't know. So it's probably the Roosevelt family because, you know, Teddy Roosevelt or whatever, he's been around for a while. I guess he had a very prominent family. I don't know much about, like, the Roosevelts except, like, you know, a little bit about Teddy Roosevelt and, you know, Theodore Roosevelt. Yeah, I don't know. I know a little bit about Teddy Roosevelt and a little bit about Theodore Roosevelt. The other one, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Yes, that one, FDR. But I don't know much about like the family, like in between. So anyway, they show one of them coming home, and she's like looking through these. You know, she comes in and she's like, "Hey, what are these?" One of them comes in, she's like, "Hey, what are these?" And they're just like, this lady's like, "Oh, those are old letters. I was seeing if we needed any of the." Addresses still. And then she's like, wait, this is for tonight, you know. She's like, wait, this is for tonight. This was the Russell's party. You know, where'd she gonna go? Why, like, you know, did you go? And the lady's just like, no. Like, don't be ridiculous. And she takes the invitation and like tosses it in the fire. And then it goes to Mrs. Russell, who's like crying in bed because it's like, oh man, the night just went terribly. No one showed up. And her husband comes up to her and, you know, sits in bed and comforts her first, puts his hand on her, comforts her for a second. It's like, hey, you know, it's okay, you know, I hope you don't give up. And then it sort of ends with her being like, the episode ends with her being like, I'm not going to give up. One day I'm going to make them pay. You know, I'll make them all pay. And then it showed like, as you know, cuts back to like the invitation burning in the fire and stuff, and then cuts back again to like her just sitting there crying, laying in bed. Honestly, the nightie is the best thing she's worn the whole fucking episode, I think, and I can barely even see it. I can only see her shoulder. Okay, and that is the end of the episode. That's how it ends, with her vowing her revenge. Okay, so where do we start? I loved the episode. I cannot wait until I know I'm about a week behind on my review. My review of episode 2 will hopefully be not the day of episode 3, so as this one is. So I love the interactions between everybody. Just like the like I said, the sort of odd couple vibe of Agnes and Ada. I love this sort of like sneaky sort of rebellion of Marion. That's great. I love how Peggy is sort of, you know, she's, you know, this black woman trying to find, you know, thrust into like white high society. And it's like, you know, she's, you know, trying to cope with that and dealing with the prejudice of some of the people living with her, you know, seeing how people are going to react to her and all this. The Russells, how they're trying to get their foot into high society, you know. It's just great so far. I can't wait to see the next episode tonight. I feel like it's going to be really good. Like I said, it's the first episode, so, you know, it's not a whole lot, because I mean, obviously there was a lot to cover, but I mean, like, when it comes to prediction wise, I'm not exactly sure where. You know, there's so many little threads. I've said before, I feel like Larry and Marion, I feel like they're gonna hit it off. You know, they got that super cliche dog rescue. And they, like I said, when she was leaving the party, he kind of held her hand and was like, hey, looked at his sister and was like, hey, let's all three of us be friends. So I think that they're going to be, they might develop something a little over time. I'm interested to see who Augustus Chamberlain is. What's up, why everyone hates her and thinks, and she's just this pariah. Um, Peggy's backstory, I'm not super interested to know what happened with her dad. Don't feel as though it's super important to what's going on right now. I could be wrong. I could, but, like I'm not, all I know enough as far as I'm concerned. Like her dad wasn't nice or something and did something to her, and now she doesn't want to see him again. Like I don't really need the particulars, at least for now, for her story. It's enough for me to know that much and that she wants to be a writer and wants to make start a new life, start a fresh start. So let's see what else. There's not a whole lot of what do I say with Agnes. I'm not sure where she's gonna go. I'm not sure. I feel like she's just gonna be sort of like the trying to keep, sort of like trying to gatekeep her high society people. She's just gonna be the one who's all snooty and stuff. Ada seems like she's the more like way more nice. I don't know, accepting of others. She's way more upbeat. The downstairs staff, like I said, Miss Turner, the lady's maid, who's eyeing Mr. Russell. I think something might develop there. I might see a little bit of affairs going on. Which I'm sure that the valet, Mr. Watson, I'm sure he's gonna be might blackmail her. And like I said, I think he's hiding something because he said he had nothing to hide. You know, so I'm sure he's gonna have some interesting backstory. He looks kind of, I don't know, almost shady, sort of. Maybe just because he's bald. I don't know. He's the only person there that doesn't have any hair. There's got to be something up with that. But and then the chef's just the chef. It's great. The cook over at the Van Ryn house, the woman, not much out of her. She had a few lines here and there, but not really much. The Bannister, the butler at the Van Ryns, him and the other footman have a good little, the footman or the under butler or whatever he is, the dude who's like, they have a sort of nice little sort of back and forth when he was mentioning that she's gonna have to get used to everybody, saying that Miss Van Ryn's gonna have to start putting up with people because they're the new money, they're the new people that are gonna run the world. So it was really interesting, so they had a good back and forth. But yeah, really, really love the show so far. It's great. My only real issue with it is Mrs. Russell's dresses. That's really it. But I don't think that's like a poor choice on like the costume people or anything. I think that they're doing that on purpose and making it seem like she's trying too hard, because she totally is. And she's trying to, she's getting all these big things, these terrible color combinations and crap. But and it's not that like nobody else wore stuff that was like not that good. It's just like hers was just like really like gaudy and just terrible. Again, I wouldn't wear it. But what the hell? But yeah, so I think that's really all I have to say about the Gilded Age. I'm gonna watch the next episode tonight. Can't wait for that. Again, I hope that I'll try and get my review out sooner this time. I'll probably do it maybe either tomorrow or sometime. I don't know. I don't want to put a time on it because I might not do it. But so yeah, again, try and get that next one out sooner. So yeah, if you like this content, go ahead and hit the like button. If you want to see more of this, go ahead and subscribe, share. If you didn't like it, tell me why. Tell me, I know that my quality isn't too great. I'm gonna need to get new cameras and an actual editing thing, whatever it's called, software, I think. But so yeah, if you didn't like it, tell me why. Tell me how you think I can improve, this and that. And I will see you all next time.